Inherent in every intention and desire is the mechanics for its fulfillment. Intention and desire in the field of pure potentiality, they have infinite organizing power. And when we introduce an intention in the fertile ground of pure potentiality, we put the infinite organizing power to work for us. Welcome, guys, to True Higher Self. Today, we're going to be talking about the law of intention and desire. This is the 5th chapter in the book of 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. A lot of great information here, so let's get started. Now, the 5th spiritual law of success is, as I said, the law of intention and desire. And this law is based on the fact that energy and information exists everywhere in nature, everywhere. So in fact, at the level of the quantum field, there's nothing other than energy and information. Nothing other than that. The quantum field is just another label for the field of pure consciousness or pure potentiality. This quantum field is influenced by, you guessed it, our intention and our desire. So, for example, the whole universe, in its essential nature, is the movement of energy and information, and we are a part of that, of course. The only difference between you, I, and a tree is the informational and the energetic content of our respective bodies. In the scheme of nature, you and I are privileged species. We're on a higher level, a level of consciousness. We have a nervous system. It's capable of becoming aware of the energy and information and the content of the localized field that gives us our physical bodies. In other words, we are aware of ourselves. There's no real evidence that trees and grass and things like that are necessarily aware of themselves, so that separates us. We experience this field subjectively as our thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, memories, instincts, drives, and of course our beliefs. Now, this same field is experienced objectively as our physical body. And through the physical body, we can experience the field as the world. So we realize that the spirit within the body animates the body and gets to experience this 3D animated world around us. So really everything is happening within us. You know, we can touch and feel and see and taste and these sorts of things, but all of these things happen inside. And we're using this vessel, our body, as a vehicle to experience the world. This is why the ancient seers have exclaimed, I am that, you are that, all this is that, and that's all there is. So we're all really one. Your body is not separate from the body of the universe because at quantum mechanical levels, there's no well-defined edges. I'm not a quantum physicist, but I do like to read and attempt to understand these sorts of concepts. They stretch my ability to reason, and they stretch my level of consciousness. And I use my levels of discernment in terms of acceptance and allowance. And I suggest you do the same thing because there's so much that we don't know and that we don't understand. And I think everything works together. So there has for a long time been a separation between science and religion. And I think that that has kept us in the same mold. I think that all are pieces to the same puzzle. And the more we know, the more we will know. Now, the larger quantum field, the universe, is your extended body. So you've heard it said by many different scientists. I hope this is not the first time you've heard this, that the elements that are in your body are also found in the stars. So you're not this body. The body was made the same way that the other components of the universe have manifested, and they all come from the same material. So you are a part of the universe. I like to say that you are a unique and individual part of the universe, an expression of the universe, a unique and individual expression of the universe. But the universe is taking place within you. The thought is that we're in the universe, but really without us being conscious of what is, there's really no universe. So there's some information to challenge you as well. Now, you can consciously change the way energy and information, the content of your own quantum mechanical body, and therefore influence the energy and information content of the extended body, your environment, your world, and cause things to manifest in it. And that's really what we want to know. How do we create? How do we create the things that we want, more specifically? What power do we have? What dominion do we have? What do we say? What's the magic password? How do we get from where we are to where we want to be? How do we use this surrounding information and energy to manifest what we want? So that's what we're going to talk about now. Now, this conscious change is brought about by the two qualities inherent in consciousness. So pay very close attention. These are two qualities inherent in consciousness. One is attention, and two is intention, intention. Now, attention energizes and intention transforms. Whatever you put your attention on will grow stronger in your life. So you've heard it say, where you put your energy, it expands. That's your attention. So use the example. Think about, when you were a kid and you used a microscope or a magnifying glass, rather, to see things more clearly. And sometimes we would, use a microscope to do things outside, like set paper on fire or, ants and these sorts of things. And what's happening is there's a magnetic focus into a particular area, causing that energy just to, multiply itself. But that's the same way with your attention, with your energy. Wherever you put your energy, if you focus like that microscope or like that magnifying glass, if you focus on a particular area in your life, it is going to expand. Conversely, if you ignore something, it will wither. It's hard to convince people of that because they seem to think that things are happening to them, which is an entirely different conversation. You're creating all of this. We're creators of our destinies, of our lives. And until we come to that realization, unfortunately, what we're talking about here may not hold any real value for you because you've got to get beyond that obstacle first. But whatever you put your attention on will grow stronger in life. Whatever you take your attention away from, it will wither. It'll disintegrate and it'll disappear. It'll be as if it never even happened. Think about all of the things now that you know because of social media, because of, thousands of cable channels, because of so much news that when you were a kid, you had no idea of. So in essence, it didn't really exist. In other words, it didn't affect your consciousness. It was not a part of your consciousness. And that thing that is outside of your consciousness doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist to you. Intention, on the other hand, it triggers transformation of energy and information. Intention organizes its own fulfillment, your intention. Now, the quality of intention on the object of attention will orchestrate an infinity of space-time events to bring about the outcome intended. So that's a mouthful. What he's basically saying here is when you put a pure intention and couple it with your attention to that particular thing, the universe, which you are part of, begins to orchestrate events in order to bring that intention to be. So I hope that is clearer. Intention put in the fertile ground of attention has infinite organizing power. So let's say, for example, that you have the intention of creating your own business. You want to be an entrepreneur. So that's your intent. My intent is to, be an entrepreneur. I am going to have let's say you want to distribute lumber. It's a pretty obscure thing, but that's the first thing that came to mind. Let's say you wanted to distribute lumber, and that's your business. And behind that are so many more higher goals. You want to help people afford lumber who maybe don't have adequate housing, and perhaps in areas of the world where there's not a lot of access, to housing supplies and things like that. But that's your intention. That is your intention. And then when you couple that with attention to, your overall scope of what you're trying to do, and then you apply that and you push that out into the universe then begins to orchestrate events to bring that about. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. How do we put our intentions out to the universe in a productive way so that we can see the results that we want? Now, the human body is another good example of Now, in the scheme of nature, everything correlates and connects with everything else. So the human body is a good example of this. So a single cell in the human body is doing about 1 trillion things per second. And it has to know what every other cell is doing at the same time. So let me give you an example. The human body can play music, number 1, kill germs, number 2, make a baby, number 3, recite poetry, number 4, and monitor the movement of stars all at the same time. Why? Because the field of infinite correlation is part of the informational field. So this shows the level of intelligence in terms of your ability to be able to correlate your attention and intention. Now, intention lays the groundwork for the effortless, spontaneous, frictionless flow of pure potentiality, seeking expression from the unmanifested to the manifested. Intention is the real power behind desire. Intention is. Intent alone is very powerful because intent is desire without attachment to the outcome. Here's the part that I had to learn. I wasn't taught this. Detachment is a skill set, a level of understanding that I think many of us can benefit from. So detachment here simply means I set the intention of being the entrepreneur, the owner of the lumberyard. Well, I set that to the universe, but I've got to detach from it from a certain level because if you're not careful, you'll then begin to orchestrate the steps for the universe yourself and say, hey, I'm going to meet this guy and he's going to be able to provide me with funding and this guy will be able to provide me with shipping, et cetera, et cetera. And it very well may not happen that way. So you must detach yourself from how, but keep your intention and attention on what. So detach from how. So the outcome, it can come anyway. It can come to you any sort of way, and it really shouldn't matter because at the end of the day, the result is what we desire. The manifestation of our entrepreneurship is what we really want. How it comes to us is immaterial, or at least it should be. But many times, if you're like me, you get caught up in the details of how is this going to happen. And you complicate things, and then you start to somewhat subjugate and get yourself off track by trying to figure out how something is going to happen as opposed to just simply concentrating on it being a done deal. This is my intention. I'm going to do as Neville Goddard has said. I'm going to live from the end. I'm going to live in the end. How does it feel to have my entrepreneurship? I can walk around my lumberyard. I can touch the 2x4s. I see trucks coming and delivering every day. That's where we need to live in terms of our level of consciousness. But a lot of times we muddy the water by trying to figure out how am I going to get from working in corporate to being an entrepreneur. And that can exacerbate us and cause us to have a lot of doubts. And of course, doubt and fear is what is going to prolong your manifestation. And we don't want that. Intention combined with detachment leads to a life-centered, present moment awareness. When action is performed in present moment awareness, it is most effective. Your intent is for the future, but your attention is in the present. So here's a challenge. Your intent is for the future. Your attention is right now. Right now, I can see that I'm sitting at my desk, in my office, and I'm nowhere near a lumberyard. But my intent in my human imagination here, I'm in the lumberyard. So how do we connect the two? Your intent is for the future, but your attention is for the present. Accept the present and intend the future. We've done a lot of lessons talking about Neville Goddard. If you don't know who Neville Goddard is, go back to our channel and just take a look at a few of the videos that we've done. And the reason I bring him up now is because his lessons and his teachings were really about this and how to be present, but also live in what he called the end, how to use what he said was your wonderful human imagination, which he said was God in you. So that can really help in this case because it is quite challenging to be able to do that and to be one place. You have a desire to be somewhere else. It's not occurred yet. How do you continue to focus on your goal? Now, if you have life-centered present moment awareness, then the imaginary obstacles, which are more than 90% of perceived obstacles, disintegrate and they disappear. The remaining 5 to 10% of perceived obstacles can be transmuted into opportunities through one pointed intention. So we could really make a whole nother video on this one statement because it is full of a lot of good advice and a lot of good information. So I'm going to read it once more. If you have life-centered present moment awareness, then the imaginary obstacles, what we perceive to be against us, the imaginary obstacles, which are more than 90% of perceived obstacles. My goodness, I'm having a hard time. So in other words, of all the obstacles that we perceive, they're imaginary. We're creating them. We do realize we're using past data, past information, and we are bringing it along with us into the future. So let me give you an example. I have this intent of becoming an entrepreneur. I am going to own my own lumber yard, and I'm going to help build houses around the world. That's my intention. Okay, so I'm dragging along my history, meaning the last time I tried to do something like this, here's what happened. This happened, I had an issue with licensing. I had a relationship issue because I was spending so much time trying to plan this business. And so you see these as obstacles for what your intention is, and you've brought them along. They don't really exist, but you've brought them. And because you spend time thinking about them, you create obstacles in front of your intention. And so what Deepak is saying here is 90% of them are just perceived obstacles. You can just simply not think of them and they will go away. They disintegrate and they'll disappear. Now, the remaining 5 or 10, here's what's awesome about that. Whatever may be legitimate out of that, the remaining 5 or 10 of the perceived obstacles, they can be transmuted. In other words, change the way that you think about them. Change the way that you think about them. Transmute that energy. Yes, this may have happened to you in the past. Think of it a different way. Or go back, revisit that date, and see yourself doing it successfully. Transmute it into opportunities through one pointed intention, but still know that your intention is going to come to fruition and manifestation. Now, one pointed intention means holding your attention to the intended outcome with such unbending purpose that you absolutely refuse any obstacle. You just don't allow any obstacle to consume and dissipate the focus quality of your attention. You may see them and say, you know what, this time I'm going to overcome it. You transmute it, I'm going to overcome it, and here's the plan to do that. There's a total and complete exclusion of all obstacles from your consciousness. So in other words, you choose to ignore them. You choose to ignore them. Now, here are the steps to implementing the law of intention and desire in our lives, and then we're going to be done. I think this is important because it's going to help us apply this. And then, of course, faith, knowledge does not apply itself, and faith without works is, of course, dead. So our instructional piece is always followed by some sort of action because that's what it requires. That's what it is going to require. So here are a few steps, 5 steps, as a matter of fact, for fulfilling your desires, intention, etc. So number one is what Eckhart is calling, I'm sorry, not Eckhart, but Deepak is calling slip into the gap. Slip into the gap. So this means to center yourself in the silent space between thoughts, to go into the silence, that level of being, which is your essential state. Now, he's saying here, and of course, if you're listening to content like this, I shouldn't assume, but I'm going to assume that you understand the power and the vastness and the complete essentialness of meditation. So this is what he's talking about, going into the silence and being your essential nature. You are more yourself when you're asleep than when you are awake. Because when you're asleep, you're not having conflicting and contradictory thoughts from your conscious mind. You're simply being. You're being you. Well, when you're awake, there's a lot of conflict and interpretation in this environment. And if you're not, while you're awake, if you're not conscious, you're not aware of that. So that's the type of person who would think something's happening to them and not through them or as them. Again, topic for another video. But my point is, if you're listening to this, some of the things you're going to have to understand is meditation really is the key. So this is done during a meditative practice. Slip into the gaps. In other words, in meditation, as you're aware, there is not a fight to keep your mind silent. So that's number one. But when you meditate, your thoughts will dissipate and there will be periods of just non-thought. So what Deepak is saying, in those gaps is when you insert your intention. When you put it out to the universe. We talked about that earlier. How do I put out my intention to the universe? Right there, you're slipping in the gap. Number two, establish in that state of being, release your intentions and desires. You release them. It's like planting in a garden. Like you find a little space, you dig a hole and you put it right there. And it's in what he called earlier, the fertile ground of pure potentiality. The fertile ground of pure potentiality. When you're actually in that gap, there's no thought, there's no intention, but as you come out of the gap, at the junction between the gap and a thought, you introduce the intention. If you have a series of goals, you can write them down and have your intention focus on them before you go into the gap. In other words, go into your meditation prepared. If you want a successful career, for example, you go into the gap with that intention, and the intention will already be there as a faint flicker in your awareness. Releasing your intentions and desires in the gap means planting them, here we go, in the fertile ground of pure potentiality. And not only that, and expecting them to bloom when the season is right. That's probably the most important part, because our expectation, our intention, coupled with our expectation, is what brings it about. You simply just saying, I expect this to happen. You're saying it to the universe. You're saying it to yourself. Every cell in your body has heard it. So all of these forces begin now to orchestrate themselves to bring this thing to be. Because you're a creator, it's got to come to be. The only way that it won't is if you go back, and because it hasn't happened yet, or because you've looked at one of your perceived obstacles and you begin to fear and doubt, you begin to dig up your seed. That's the only way it doesn't happen. But unfortunately, we do that all the time. We say we want a thing, our lumber yard's out there, we know it's going to happen, but on our way, to the lumber yard, we get nervous about financing because we know in the past we were not able to get the financing. And then we start to doubt, will I be able to get financing this time? And then we're digging up that seed. Instead of just forgetting about the financing, allowing the universe, your source, your higher being to be able to bring these things about at its own discretion, you're simply focused on the end result. All right, so you don't want to dig up your seeds of your desires to see if they're growing or get rigidly attached to them in a way by which they won't unfold. In other words, that's the detachment we talked about. You simply want to release them. Put your lumber business out there, put it out to the universe, and then go about your day. All right, number 3, remain in a state of self-referral. This means remain established in the awareness of your true self, knowing who you are, your spirit, your connection to the field of pure potentiality. In other words, remember I said you are a unique and individual expression of the universe. You are the universe. You're part of that. So just keep that in mind. It also means not to look at yourself through the eyes of the world or allow yourself to be influenced by the opinions and criticisms of others. The worst thing that you can do on your way to your entrepreneurship is talk to other folks who've tried this or wanted to do it and somehow failed. They'll give you 1,000 reasons why it's not going to happen for you also. You don't want to have the conversation with these folks. It's better for you just to be silent. It's better for you to develop a better audience, a better set of friends, move to a higher level of friendship in terms of consciousness because you want confirmation. You do not want a defeatist network around you. Now, a helpful way to maintain a good state of self-referral is to keep your desires to yourself. Keep your desires to yourself. Do not share them with anyone else unless they share the exact same desires that you have and are already closely bonded with you for obvious reasons. Number 4, relinquish your attachment to the outcome. Relinquish your attachment to the outcome. This means giving up the rigid attachment to a specific result and living in the wisdom of uncertainty. It's hard to do, but it is wise. It means enjoying every moment in the journey of your life, even if you don't know the outcome. Begin to enjoy the journey as much as you are enjoying the idea of the destination. That is life. And the last one is let the universe handle the details. This is what we talked about before. Your intention and desires, when released into the gap, have infinite organizing power. You need to trust that this infinite organizing machine, the universe, takes the power of intention to orchestrate all the details for you. You put it out there and you use your faith and your belief and just say, hey, I'm putting this out there. I believe this is how creation works. And I'm gonna test this. Well, I said probably not the best way to say it. I'm going to have unbending faith. I'm not going to believe anything other than my outcome. And then let's see what the results are. So that has been the law of intention and desire. So as you go about your day today and moving forward, how do you put this into action? We just gave you 5 steps about how to do it. You can begin now to make a list of your desires. Carry that list with you wherever you go. If I were you, I would look at this list before I go into my meditation and into my silence. I'll look at it before I go to sleep at night. That's one thing that I do all the time. I'm beginning to journal now. I write down things in the present that I want to happen, that will happen. That's a very powerful subconscious technique to begin to tell yourself, hey, today I walked into my lumber yard and it was buzzing with business. We've never had such a wonderful day, at the lumber yard. There were so many trucks coming and going. I have 20 employees now. I'm hiring more this afternoon, and these sorts of things. Write that down so you can see it and your subconscious mind can see it as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. If you've not done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Down below, if you got any questions or comments, please leave them there. And one of the things that we have given to you in the event that you have not started your meditation practice and you'd like to, there's a free book on the power and the essence of a home practice meditation and a yoga practice as well, because you need to be fit in your mental state as well as in your physical state. So we have a free giveaway for you. Please take a look at it below in the descriptions. We'll be happy to send that over to you. All you have to do is send us your email and it will be in your inbox immediately. Thank you, guys. I hope you found a lot of benefit here, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks.